Hi there, everybody. I've put together again another document about GDPR first brainstorming, the first steps that you have to consider. As always, or as very often, I have the document here so you can read along while listening to my voice, whatever you prefer. In that sense, we start with step 1, understand why you need to take action in the first place. Well, personal data is spread across a range of different electronic systems, both, of course, inside and outside your business. For example, you have an EDRMS, you have a shared personal drive, you might have collaboration systems, databases, email systems, web-based social media, and so on. So for many of these systems, it's not possible to build in disposal. So it has to be managed separately, and that's the problem. So as the volume of digital personal data grows and ages, the urgency of this situation is increasing, of course. So having said this, responsible disposal of personal data presents significant opportunities to your business in terms of reducing storage and maintenance costs by separating the personal data that is required from your business functions, and increasing efficiency by making it easier to find and use the personal data you actually need, and supporting compliance by enabling. Well, keeping personal data for longer than is required exposes your business to serious risks, partly even around costs, for example. There are significant costs around maintaining, preserving, presenting digital personal data back to the user, and the more personal data you hold, the more expensive this will be, of course. So also not complying with legislation such as the Data Protection Act or the GDPR can lead to partly severe financial penalties. So what else? Efficiency. Keeping too much personal data will impede the performance of your digital systems and make it difficult to find the personal data that you actually need to carry out your business functions. It's also hard to maintain large amounts of digital personal data and ensure that it is complete, available, and usable for as long as you actually need it. Reputation, another important thing. So not disposing of personal data is in a responsible, so to speak, and timely fashion will put your organization, your business at risk of non-compliance, for example, of not disposing of personal data as required under the Data Protection Act or the GDPR. So step 2, find out what personal data you actually have. So what does your business do? First questions. So you should start with a clear understanding of exactly what your business does. Understanding the big picture will be of great help in understanding the value of your personal data. What personal data do you actually have? Well, finding out what data a business has is often referred to as a personal data survey, or you can do an audit. You need to work with business areas to identify what the unit does and the personal data that it creates, handles, receives, and shares. So you need to consider all types of personal data, no matter what the format is. Where is your personal data kept? Well, find out what systems contain this personal data. Consider all digital resources and sources. For example, the EDRM, as we mentioned, enterprise content management systems, so ECMs, systems, collaboration systems, email systems, internet, case management systems, line of business systems, social media, and so on. It is not enough to simply know what systems exist. You also need to understand the life cycle of the technology. Knowing when a system is coming to the end of its useful life will help you plan for upgrades or acquisition of new systems if you need them, migration of personal data between as necessary. Interdependencies, so to speak, between systems. Do any of your systems rely on other systems to function properly? So figure that out. Your IT department should already have a record of this personal data. Of course, it's important to work closely with them on this. This knowledge will help you make decisions about what technology you actually need to support your personal data. Duplicate personal data. What's about that? Well, it's common for multiple copies of documents to be held within digital systems, and often there is a good business reason for this. You should identify and dispose of any duplicates if they are of no business value. That's important. Then documenting what you know. You should record what you have found out in a spreadsheet or in a database. Ensure that you have captured at least the following personal data, though you may want to include more. So that's type of personal data. Personal data owner. How long the personal data should be kept for. Disposal action. So why the personal data should be kept in the first place, for example. Are there legal or other reasons for the disposal period and the action? Sensitivity of data, access restrictions. Where is the personal data held? There are a number of templates, of course, such as disposal schedules, personal data, asset registers, and what to keep schedules that can be used for this purpose. Your business is likely to use all or some of these. It might be sensible to record this personal data in one place, but you should do what works best of your business needs. The important thing is that this personal data is recorded and kept up to date. So what's about keeping it up to date? Well, there's not a one-off, on-off task business change and staff move on. It's important to appoint people to own the schedules and associated processes, which will need to be reviewed regularly and kept up to date. You might decide to review annually or at the point of change, for example, an organizational or technology change. Step 3 now, understand the value of your personal data. Well, all actions in managing your personal data should be based on an understanding of the value that this personal data brings to your organization. So types of value are personal data needs to be kept by law. While certain pieces of legislation set out types of personal data that should be kept and how long they should be kept for example, Health and Safety at Work Act in England. So business units within your organization are likely to have knowledge, of course, of legislative record keeping requirements. Then personal data that it has ongoing business value. Well, is that which is needed to carry out business functions or to provide evidence of a business activity. It's essential to work with business units in deciding what should be kept for business purposes. They have real expertise in this area usually and should know what personal data they need to go about their daily work and how long they need it for. Then personal data that has reuse value. It's also important to consider whether your personal data might have value from a reuse perspective and publish it accordingly. Decisions about the value of personal data in general now should be based on the content and context rather than on format, importantly. Using value to make decisions. Well, once you understand the value of your personal data, you can start to make sensible decisions about how to manage it. For example, if you have personal data that is of short-term value, you don't want to be incurring the cost of keeping it beyond its useful life. So storage may be cheap, but it's costly to maintain, preserve, provide access to that personal data over time. While for personal data of medium, long-term value that is required to carry out or provide evidence of business function or that is of historical value of some kind, you need to have the right policies, processes, and systems in place to ensure that you can find, open, understand, trust, and work with the personal data for as long as you need it. Well, ensure staff understand the value of that data. So you should ensure that staff across your business know what personal data they should be keeping, why, and where. Some common methods of doing this are ensuring that this is part of the induction training when people join the business and providing refresher training workshops, drop-in sessions to ensure that people retain this knowledge. While printed materials such as desk guides, listing what personal data to keep, leaflets, and posters, for example, then using personal data representatives within the business to promote the message and help staff to do the right thing. Then step 4. Dispose of the data you no longer need. So there are a number of actions you should take to ensure that disposal actually takes place. Decide on trigger points. Trigger points required to action disposal. Common examples are X years after the opening or the closure of a digital file or folder, or X years after the last entry, for example, to a spreadsheet or a database. Well, then build disposal into your digital systems wherever possible. So you should make the process of disposal as automatic as possible by building it into the digital systems that you use. How you do this will depend on the type of systems, as different systems manage disposal in different ways. It will usually involve attaching disposal metadata to personal data within your systems. Where this is not possible to build in disposal, then you will need to manage it separately using the schedules you have compiled, hopefully under stage 2, as you mentioned before. Well, keep an audit trail. It's important to keep an audit trail of what was deleted and when. Some digital systems will do this automatically for you. For others, you will have to keep a record of what has been deleted separately. A schedule of the type described under stage 2 here will help to demonstrate that the intention was to dispose of data at a certain point, even if it doesn't prove exactly when the personal data was disposed of. And then define deletion. So delete doesn't always mean delete in a digital world, and it's often possible to recover digital records after they have been deleted. So creating a policy or statement around when you consider digital records to have been deleted from your systems will help to avoid costly recovery efforts. So that's that for this first brainstorming. Hope it can help you, and thank you for listening.